The RTX 3070 was recently released, and amid the war of who gets it first, I somehow managed to buy one easily and get it delivered to my home. Because home is where the RTX is. Hey everyone, Mukul here. Well, I really dig the design of the package. It's definitely smaller than the card's AIB partner's packaging. And the card was actually placed in an inclined position this time. Except for the card, you get some manuals and this odd converter which Nvidia could have avoided, but they chose not to. So here you go, some extra cables for your case to fill in. The design of the card this time overall was really matte-ish and had a mix of grey and blackish theme on it, which I dig for all the good reasons. The brushed matte finish is all over it, and those supposedly aluminium heatsink fins looks good too. But trust me, you won't be able to see any damn thing inside your case if it isn't loaded with RGB or you vertically mount the card. The corners on all the sides are quite well rounded. You can definitely call it extra rounded. And the edges are quite chamfered too. The heatsink fins are in a nice mirrored placement, which are also visible on the back of the card. And for some reason, the aluminium shroud around the card denotes an S, which also means hope in Kryptonian. Go figure. And there are two fans on the card, in case that wasn't clear by now. There are 3 display ports 1.4a and 1 HDMI 2.1 port on the card. Well, the card felt extremely well built. And if I speak the famous phrase, built like a tank, I won't be wrong. And it is also quite heavy. Thank God I don't have to lift it to use it or anything. I love gaming and I spend many hours gaming every single week. And that would have been true if this was the year 2010. But then adulthood really hit me really bad. But I do somehow manage to find some time every month to play some of the games. Now, why I chose to upgrade to this card over my 2070 Super was mainly because of the new architecture on it with the insane amount of CUDA cores. In comparison, it has almost thrice as many CUDA cores as the 2070 Super for the same price I bought it last year. So despite having the same amount of VRAM this year too, and for the kind of workload I throw on my machine, Nvidia was the only choice which actually ticks all the marks. So yeah, don't think I'm a fool for not waiting for the Radeon 5000 series cards, okay? I know what I'm buying. Let's start with the software tests first, and then we shall share a very few interesting gaming benchmarks too. The specs of my test bench, which is also my workbench but is not my exercise bench, would be on your screen. In the Blender test, as compared to the 2070 Super, the 3070 was about 70% faster in BMW 27 test and 60% faster in the Fishy Cat test in the CUDA mode. And in the optics mode, the BMW 27 test was 70% faster and the Fishy Cat scene was about 55% faster. So these numbers already blew my mind over the upgrade I did. The OpenGL test on the Cinebench R15 was about 42% faster on the 3070. The VRay benchmark 4.10 returned with 70% better results on the 3070. So if you do a lot of VRay GPU renderings, damn, this update is so crucial if rendering stuff is your bread and butter like how it is mine. I mean, especially till we actually start consuming binary, but I would definitely miss my butter chicken. And for fun, I ran the Corona 1.3 render test too, but the difference wasn't huge here as it was just 11%, so the fun part immediately died here. But man, the huge leap of over 80% performance improvement on the Octane benchmarks was a treat to the eyes. The Redshift render also took a good leap of about 40% in performance on the 3070. Rendering a 60 Mbps 4K clip on Premiere Pro at H265 encoding gave similar results. Guess for video editors, this isn't going to be a huge leap. Damn, we definitely needed some extra VRAM on this upgrade. Especially when all the money which we are giving for this upgrade is new money. I also tested a Keyshot 9 render too, which used to take 28 seconds on the 2070 Super, and on the 3070 it saw a huge leap of 80%. I mean, it can't get any better than this. During the Blender render test in CUDA mode, the peak clock speeds maintained steadily around 2 GHz with peak power consumption of up to 208 watts. The temperature rose to 74 degrees Celsius though. So yeah, if GPU rendering is one of your major workloads which you are going to throw on this card, then these numbers might have suddenly pushed you deep down the never-ending pit of upgrades. I mean, for instance, look at me. It pushed me real hard and now I can't afford food anymore. And now the exciting numbers of gaming, which I hope I'll be able to do more with this upgrade. In Battlefield 5 at ultra settings with RTX and DLSS off, the game performed great and was close to 80 FPS even at 4K resolution. But as I turned on the RTX with DLSS off, the game struggled at 4K. I mean, we would obviously be using DLSS now as it has been improved drastically, but interesting to see how performance hungry the 4K resolution still is. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order in epic settings saw a crazy good performance in all the three resolutions, with the 4K touching almost 60 FPS. And it gets a huge spike of almost twice the FPS with DRS on, which leaves me awestruck. I took all the Metro Exodus tests with RTX on, but the spike with DLSS at 4K resolution wasn't as huge as the previous test we saw. The almost 60 FPS just peaked till 75 FPS and mostly stayed under 80 FPS. In the shadow of Tomb Raider at higher settings, the peak FPS ranged pretty solid, which almost crossed 60 FPS at 4K. And with both the RTX and DLSS on, there was a decent jump of 20% at the max resolutions here. At 1440p with RTX DLSS on, there was just a jump of 10 FPS in average frames per second. So I would rather stick to the raw performance at 2K resolution, as the FPS sacrifice is quite nominal. The VRAM hungry game Doom Eternal in Ultra Nightmare settings was consistent at 144 FPS in both the lower resolution, but strangely with RSM on, which is the resolution scaling mode, the performance actually dropped, which was super weird. What's interesting and was actually a revelation to me in all of these tests was that Doom Eternal just hogged all the amount of VRAM immediately from the startup screen. Most of the other games in my test ate up to 7 GB of VRAM at 4K resolution, but Doom Eternal started hogging about 7.5 GB of VRAM even from the startup screen. But the game was extremely fluid and it didn't stutter for even a bit. The average peak temperatures of Founders Edition in most of these software tests and gaming peaked till 77 degrees Celsius, which is actually not bad at all considering the 3070 Founders Edition isn't a massive card with loads of fans and even larger heatsinks on it, which we can see on the cards from Nvidia's AIB partners. That being said, the amount of metal is not less either, and the design is pretty solid to keep the card at a moderate temperature. Noise from the card was hardly audible to me, but there was a difference of 6 to 7 decibels from idle to peak loads. So yeah, looks like for both your GPU rendering needs and for games, this card is going to be enough for the few years ahead. Nvidia could have definitely increased the VRAMs on these cards, which could have definitely improved gamers who want to game at 4K resolutions, but Nvidia just doesn't make these GeForce cards by keeping gamers in mind. They also like professionals too, who could never afford their super expensive Quadro series, and hence those insane editions of CUDA cores with other features on the Nvidia 3000 series might make this a good and affordable proposition for a lot of consumers who might just not build their machine just for gaming. I might just do a few more tests in the future on this card as we get more driver updates, and I will make sure to post a very quick video about it. I mean, hopefully I will. So do leave a like with sub and the bell if this video helped you in any way. Stay safe humans, Mewbot out.